Labour's approach starts from the belief that education should prepare our children for the world in which they live and the future that they, together, will shape. And to achieve that, to give each and every child the opportunity and the future that they deserve, relationships, sex and health education must be an integral part of every child's education. The content of such education must be both age-appropriate and taught in a respectful manner and tailored to the reality of children's lives. The Secretary of State has set out today that the government intend to achieve this through the introduction of age limits on certain aspects of this curriculum. Today's statement has been long in the making. Alongside school leaders, we've consistently pushed for clearer guidance on these issues to be introduced so school leaders and teachers can feel confident and supported in what they are teaching. And while we're pleased that the guidance is at last being published, there is deep concern about the lack of consultation with school leaders in developing the guidance so far. If the government is serious about ensuring that RSE is taught in a dignified and respectful manner and in a way that school teachers and school leaders feel that they can confidently deliver, then they must ensure that the voices of school leaders and teachers are heard. So I want to ask the Secretary of State if she's able to address a couple of concerns in particular. The first is a concern that arises from the reality that education is one of our strongest levers for preventing child abuse. It is crucial at a time of rising levels of sexual offences against children, especially our youngest children, that children are empowered to recognise when something isn't right. The Secretary of State will know that sometimes such issues arise urgently in a class or in a wider school community outside of the timeline that a teacher might have in mind, perhaps even before the age limits that she is proposing. So will she say something about the ability of teachers to respond to and reflect such concerns in future in the context of age limits, and especially when they arise among younger children? The second concern is about the importance of children learning not just about their own relationships tomorrow, but their own and other people's families today. And on this side of the House, we believe that what matters about families is not the shape they have, but the love they give. Teaching children about the facts of the world in which they grow up must include an understanding that there are people who are transgender, that people can go through a process of change of their gender, and that the law provides for that. The Secretary of State outlined a little of her thinking in her statement and on Radio 4 this morning, but I wondered if she could set it out in more detail for the House today. On some of the other issues raised by this guidance, Labour very much welcome the intention of the guidance to remove the barriers that some parents face when asking what is being taught to their children. Of course, parents should know what their children are being taught. And while they're already required to do so, it is acknowledged that there have been issues with interpretations of copyright legislation, and it's absolutely right that ministers seek to clarify this issue. We also welcome that there will be additional content on suicide prevention in the secondary curriculum, as well as covering the risks of self-harm and suicide content on social media. However, it does need to be backed up with support in schools to adequately address the challenges that far too many children and young people face with their mental health. Labour has a funded plan to ensure every young person will have access to a specialist mental health professional at secondary school and for mental health hubs in every community. And whilst we await the next Labour government, this government must urgently set out how it will get these CAMHS waiting lists down and deliver support to children and young people who need it most. We also welcome the inclusion of content on sexual harassment and sexual violence. Yesterday, I joined the leader of Redbridge Council and teachers to hear about the innovative step-in programme that they're delivering in schools, tackling sexual harassment, sexist harassment and misogyny. It was really inspiring to see the students so confidently addressing the issues with their peers in changing attitudes, and I hope that as part of the review, the government will look at some of the fantastic resources that local authorities have developed while waiting for the government to act. We will now need to look at the exact detail of the draft guidance, and schools will too. And it's really important that stakeholders from across education are able to feed back their views, and I hope that the government will reflect